The red sun of Aurea rose slowly over the eastern hills, casting long shadows across the mining compound. Tom wiped the sweat from his brow and leaned on his shovel for a moment of rest. His once strong hands were now covered in calluses and small cuts. 3 years of hard labor had changed him, just as it had changed all the survivors. "Keep moving," growled a harsh voice behind him. "No breaks until the noon bell." Tom turned to see one of the razor guards standing there, its scaled skin gleaming in the morning light. The alien stood almost 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and a face that reminded Tom of the lizards he had kept as pets back on Earth. But there was nothing pet-like about the razors. They were conquerors, slavers, and killers. "Sorry," Tom muttered, returning to his work. He knew better than to argue. Last week, a man named Pete had talked back to a guard. They hadn't seen Pete since. The mining compound stretched for miles around him. Once, this had been the proud human colony of New Hope. Now it was just another razor work camp. 500 people remained from the original 3,000 colonists. The rest had died in the initial attack, or in the harsh years that followed. At the far end of the compound, Anna was sorting minerals on a conveyor belt. Her fingers moved quickly, separating the valuable blue crystals from the worthless rock. The razors prized these crystals above all else. They powered their ships, their weapons, and their strange machines. Anna looked up briefly, catching Tom's eye across the yard. She gave him a small nod, their secret signal that everything was okay. They had been friends since childhood and had come to Aurea together, full of hope for a new life. Now they just hoped to survive another day. A loud horn signaled the midday break. The workers shuffled toward the food line, keeping their heads down. Meals were the same every day, a gray paste that tasted like nothing but kept them alive. "Marcus wants to meet," Anna whispered as she slid onto the bench beside Tom. "Tonight." "The usual place." Tom nodded slightly. Marcus had been a military officer back on Earth before coming to Aurea to lead the colony's small security team. When the Razors attacked, he had organized what little resistance they could manage. It hadn't been enough, but many people would have died without his quick thinking. Now, Marcus led what remained of their hope, a small resistance group that met in secret, planning for a day when they might be free again. The afternoon work was harder than the morning. The temperature rose to almost unbearable levels, and 2 people collapsed from heat exhaustion. The Razor Guard simply dragged them to the shade and ordered others to take their places. There was no mercy here, only work. When darkness finally fell, Tom made his way carefully through the sleeping quarters. The colonists lived in what had once been storage sheds. 30 people packed into spaces meant for equipment. There was no privacy, no comfort, only exhausted bodies trying to rest before another day of labor. Behind the water recycling unit, a small panel in the wall slid open when Tom knocked 3 times. He crawled through into a narrow maintenance tunnel. "You're late," Marcus said as Tom emerged into a small room. It had once been part of the colony's water system, forgotten when the Razors rebuilt everything to suit their needs. Anna was already there, along with 5 others, the core of their resistance. They sat on upturned buckets and crates in a circle, their faces lit by a single dim light powered by a stolen Razor battery. "They added more guards to the north section," Tom explained. "Had to wait until they changed shifts." Marcus nodded. He was a tall man with a hard face that rarely smiled anymore, but his eyes still burned with the same intensity they had on the first day of the invasion. "We need to talk about the communications tower," Marcus said, pointing to a rough map spread on the floor. "The Razors are bringing in new equipment next week. This might be our only chance." "Chance for what?" asked Bill, an older man who had been the colony's doctor before the invasion. "To get ourselves killed." "To contact Earth," Anna said firmly. "I've been studying their tech when they aren't looking. I think I can modify one of their communication arrays to send a message on our old frequencies." "Earth abandoned us," Jane said bitterly. She had lost her husband and 2 children in the first attacks. "They never sent help. Why would they come now?" "We don't know that," Marcus replied. The Razors destroyed our communication satellites in the first hour. Earth might not even know what happened here. Tom looked around at the tired faces. Even if Earth knows, they might not have the technology to fight the Razors. We all saw what happened to our ships. The room fell silent as everyone remembered. The colony had only had 3 small ships in orbit when the Razors arrived. They had been destroyed in seconds, burning up in Aurea's atmosphere like shooting stars. It's been 3 years, Marcus said quietly. Technology advances quickly in wartime. If Earth knows they have an enemy, they've been preparing. Anna unfolded a small piece of paper with diagrams drawn on it. I've been working on this plan for months. The Razors change the access codes to their systems every 2 weeks. The next change is in 3 days. There's a small window during the change when I might be able to send a tight beam transmission. Might? Bill asked. It's not without risk, Anna admitted. If they catch us, they'll kill us. Not just those involved. They'll make an example of many. The room fell silent again. Tom looked at the faces around him, worn by hard work and harder choices. I'll help, he said finally. If there's even a small chance Earth can send help, we have to try. One by one, the others nodded. Hope was a dangerous thing in a place like this. But without it, they were already dead. Then it's settled, Marcus said, rolling up the map. We have 3 days to prepare. Tom and Anna will handle the communication array. The rest of us will create a distraction. As they left the hidden room one by one, returning to their beds, Tom looked up at the night sky through a small crack in the roof. Somewhere up there was Earth, so far away it was just a memory. Were they still looking for their lost colony? Did they even know Aurea had fallen? 3 years of slavery had nearly broken them. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, Tom felt something dangerous stirring in his chest. Hope. 3 days passed quickly. Tom spent his work shifts watching the guard patterns and memorizing the timing of their rounds. Each night, the small resistance group met to refine their plan. The tension grew with every passing hour. Tomorrow night, Marcus announced during their final meeting. The guards change shifts at midnight, and there's a supply ship landing at the south end of the compound. Most of the Razors will be busy with unloading. Anna held up a small device she had built from stolen parts. It was no bigger than her palm. A mess of wires and circuit boards wrapped in cloth to keep it quiet. This will help me bypass their security, she explained. But I'll only have a few minutes to send the message before they detect the unauthorized transmission. What exactly are you going to send? Jane asked. We can't just say, help us, and expect Earth to mount a rescue mission. Anna nodded. I've prepared a data packet. Our coordinates, information about the Razors, their numbers, their technology, and a compressed history of what happened here. It's everything Earth would need to understand what they're facing. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Bill and Jane would create a distraction near the food storage area. Marcus and 2 others would disable the power to the secondary security systems. Tom would help Anna reach the communications tower and stand guard while she sent the message. Get some sleep, Marcus told them. Tomorrow, we fight back. But sleep didn't come easily for Tom. He lay on his thin mat, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with all the things that could go wrong. Around him, the soft sounds of breathing and occasional coughs filled the cramped sleeping quarters. These people had become his family over the past 3 years. How many would survive tomorrow? Morning came too soon. The day dragged on with agonizing slowness. Tom went through his usual work routine, shoveling more into carts, but his eyes constantly drifted to the tall communications tower that stood at the center of the compound. Tonight, that tower would either be their salvation or their doom. When evening finally arrived, Tom met Anna behind the water recycling unit. She was pale but determined, the makeshift device hidden under her shirt. Ready? He asked. She nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. They waited in silence until the compound lights dimmed for the night cycle. Then, right on schedule, A distant explosion rocked the south end of the compound. Bill and Jane had set off their distraction. "Now," Tom whispered. They moved quickly through the shadows, avoiding the main paths. Razor guards ran past them toward the explosion, their heavy footsteps fading into the distance. So far, the plan was working. The communications tower was surrounded by a fence topped with sharp spikes. But Marcus had done his job. The power indicator on the fence was dark. Tom helped Anna climb over, then followed, tearing his shirt on one of the spikes. "This way," Anna whispered, pointing to a small maintenance door at the base of the tower. Inside, the tower hummed with energy. Blinking lights filled the darkness, and the air smelled of ozone and hot metal. Anna moved confidently through the maze of equipment, her eyes scanning for the main control panel. "There," she said, pointing to a large console. "Keep watch. I need at least 3 minutes." Tom positioned himself near the door, his heart pounding in his chest. Through a small window, he could see razor guards returning from the distraction site. They moved with purpose, which meant they had realized it was a diversion. "Hurry," he urged. Anna worked quickly, her fingers dancing over the alien controls. She connected her device to the console and began typing commands. "It's fighting me," she muttered. "The security protocols are adapting." Tom watched anxiously as a group of guards approached the tower. "Anna, we're running out of time." "Almost there," she said, sweat beading on her forehead. "The system is accepting my commands, but it keeps trying to lock me out." The guards were less than 50 yards away now. Tom looked around desperately for a weapon, finding only a metal pipe leaning against the wall. "They're coming," he warned, gripping the pipe tightly. "Got it," Anna exclaimed. "Sending now." The message is encoded and compressed. It will look like normal system noise if they detect it. The door burst open. A razor guard stood there, its 4 arms reaching for weapons. Tom swung the pipe with all his strength, catching the alien across its midsection. It stumbled backward but didn't fall. "Run," Tom shouted to Anna. "Is the message sent?" "Not yet." She worked frantically at the console. 10 more seconds. The razor lunged at Tom, its clawed hands gripping his throat. Tom struggled to breathe, spots dancing before his eyes. With a desperate effort, he drove his knee into the alien's body and broke free. "Done," Anna cried. Message sent. More guards were entering the tower now. Tom grabbed Anna's hand and pulled her toward a back exit he had spotted earlier. They burst out into the night air, alarms wailing behind them. They ran blindly through the compound, dodging guards and searchlights. But there were too many. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves facing 3 razor guards with weapons raised. "Stop," one of them commanded in its harsh, clicking language. Tom and Anna froze. There was nowhere to run. The guards marched them to the center of the compound, where other colonists were being gathered. Tom's heart sank when he saw Bill already there, his face bloody and bruised. Of Marcus, there was no sign. The leader of the Razors, a tall alien with red markings on its scales, stood on a platform addressing the assembled humans. "We know some of you have committed acts of sabotage," it said in halting English. "Those responsible will step forward now, or 10 of you will die." No one moved. Tom felt Anna's hand slip into his, squeezing tightly. "Very well," the Razor leader said. It pointed to Bill. "Begin with him." What happened next was something Tom would never forget. The guards dragged Bill forward. He didn't beg or plead. Instead, he stood tall and looked directly at the Razor leader. "Earth will come for us," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "And when they do, you will regret ever setting foot on our world." The Razor leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth does not know you exist anymore. No one is coming to save you." Bill smiled. "We'll see." The guards raised their weapons. Tom closed his eyes, unable to watch. The sound of energy weapons discharging filled the air. That night, 5 colonists died, including Bill. The Razors never discovered that a message had been sent. They found the damaged console but believed it was simple vandalism, part of the distraction. In the days that followed, life in the camp became even harder. Guards were doubled, work hours extended. But among the colonists, a whisper began to spread. The message was sent. No one knew if Earth had received it. No one knew if help would ever come. But for the first time in 3 years, the humans of Aurea allowed themselves to hope. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a small packet of data traveled toward Earth, carrying their desperate plea for help. 6 months passed since they had sent their desperate message into space. The seasons changed on Aurea, bringing heavy rains that turned the work yards into mud pits. Life in the camp continued its harsh routine, but something had changed among the colonists. They worked with their heads a little higher, their eyes watching the skies when the guards weren't looking. Tom had been reassigned to one of the observation posts after the incident, as the Razors called it. The aliens thought it was punishment. The towers were exposed to the elements, and the work was lonely, but Tom actually preferred it. From his post, he could see much of the compound, and more importantly, the sky above. It was during the early morning shift when Tom first noticed something strange. A flicker in the clouds, like heat lightning but with no sound. He watched it for several minutes before it disappeared. Probably just a weather anomaly, he thought. Aurea's atmosphere was known for unusual electrical storms. But the next day, it happened again. And the day after that. When Tom finally got a chance to speak with Anna, he told her about what he had seen. Could be anything, she said cautiously. They were standing in the food line, keeping their voices low. But keep watching. Marcus joined them, sliding into line behind Anna. He looked thinner than ever, his face gaunt from the extra work shifts the Razors had assigned him after the escape attempt. The guards are nervous, he said quietly. Something's happening. Their commanders have been in meetings all week. Tom felt a flutter of excitement in his chest, but kept his face neutral. I've seen lights in the sky. 3 days in a row now. Marcus nodded slightly. Keep it to yourself for now. But watch carefully. 2 more weeks passed. The strange lights appeared daily now, sometimes lasting for hours. The pattern was too regular to be natural. Tom started keeping a mental log, noting the timing and location of each appearance. Then came the day that changed everything. Tom was at his post when a Razor commander climbed up to his observation platform. The alien studied the sky through a strange device, ignoring Tom completely. More atmospheric disturbances, it muttered in its own language, not realizing Tom had learned enough of their speech to understand basic phrases. The commander made some adjustments to the device, then froze. It stared through the viewer again, its scaled skin changing color slightly. A sign of alarm, Tom had learned. The alien spoke urgently into a communication device, then hurried down the ladder. Within minutes, alarms were sounding across the compound. That night, extra guards were posted around the perimeter. Heavy weapons were brought out of storage, and the Razor ships that usually sat idle began running engine tests. Something's happening, Marcus whispered during the brief moment they passed each other at shift change. Be ready. 3 days later, the entire sky above Aurea seemed to shimmer with strange light. The Razors were clearly agitated now, their commanders barking orders as troops were redeployed around the compound. Defense systems that had been dormant for years were suddenly active again. Tom watched from his observation post as a massive storm system began to form in the upper atmosphere. It was unlike any weather pattern he had ever seen on Aurea. Too symmetrical, too controlled. The clouds spiraled outward from a central point, forming a perfect circle that expanded to cover much of the visible sky. A Razor officer climbed up to Tom's platform, pushing him aside roughly. "What is that?" it demanded, pointing at the strange formation. Tom feigned ignorance. "Just clouds, sir. A storm coming." The officer studied him with cold reptilian eyes. "If you humans have something to do with this, how could we?" Tom asked, spreading his hands innocently. "We're just miners now." But inside, His heart was racing. Could it be? After all this time. That evening, Anna found him during the meal break. "The Razors are scared," she whispered. "I overheard their technicians talking. They've detected energy signatures they can't identify in the upper atmosphere. Thousands of them." Tom couldn't keep the hope from his voice. "Earth?" Anna's eyes shone. Who else could it be? The next morning, the storm had grown even larger. The swirling clouds now covered the entire visible sky, turning day into an eerie twilight. Lightning flashed constantly within the formation, but there was no thunder, no rain, just the silent, pulsing energy. The Razors ordered all humans confined to their quarters. Guards patrolled with weapons ready, watching the sky more than the prisoners. Their fear was almost palpable now. Marcus somehow managed to visit Tom's bunk that night, slipping past the distracted guards. "We need to be ready," he said, his voice barely audible. "If this is what we think it is, there will be a moment to act." "What should we do?" Tom asked. "Spread the word. When it starts, whatever it is, we fight back. Every human in this camp needs to be ready to seize any weapon they can find." Tom nodded. "What about Anna?" "She's already organizing the eastern section. We'll—" Marcus stopped mid-sentence. Outside, a new alarm was sounding, higher pitched, more urgent than anything they had heard before. The entire building shook as if struck by something massive. They rushed to the small window. The storm above had changed. The swirling clouds were now punctuated by thousands of tiny lights, like stars breaking through. But these lights were moving, descending. "They're coming," Marcus whispered, awe in his voice. The Razor guards were running now, abandoning their posts to man the defense systems. Energy weapons powered up across the compound, firing blindly into the storm. But the lights continued to descend, unaffected. Through the window, Tom could see the first of them breaking through the cloud layer. They weren't ships, at least not like any he had seen before. They looked more like raindrops. Thousands of metallic raindrops falling from the sky, each trailing blue fire. "Orbital drop pods," Marcus said, his military training helping him recognize what they were seeing. "Earth has developed orbital drop technology." As they watched, the first pods struck the ground outside the compound perimeter. They didn't explode on impact as expected. Instead, they opened like flowers, and from each one emerged a figure in sleek armor. Human soldiers. "They came," Tom said, his voice cracking. "They actually came." Marcus gripped his shoulder, and they came like a storm. Outside, the night was suddenly bright with weapons fire as Earth's forces engaged the Razor defenses. The storm above continued to deliver its payload of soldiers, a relentless rain of humanity descending on the unsuspecting aliens. "Now," Marcus said, turning to the other colonists who had gathered at the windows. "Now we fight back." Chaos erupted throughout the compound. The Razors were running in all directions, their usual discipline shattered by the surprise attack. Energy weapons fired into the sky, creating strange patterns of light against the storm clouds, but for every drop pod they managed to hit, 20 more broke through. "We need weapons," Marcus told the gathered colonists. There were about 40 of them in the barracks, men and women who had endured years of slavery. Their faces showed a mix of fear and hope. "The guard station at the end of this building should have what we need." Tom moved to the door and peeked out. 2 guards, both distracted by what's happening outside. Marcus nodded. "That's our first target. Ready?" The colonists had no real weapons, just tools and makeshift clubs they had hidden over the years. But they had numbers, and for the first time, they had hope. They burst from the barracks like a flood, overwhelming the surprised guards before they could even raise their weapons. Tom grabbed one of the fallen energy rifles and passed it to Marcus, who knew how to use it. Others took whatever weapons they could find. "Move toward the east gate," Marcus ordered. "That's where most of the human forces are landing. We need to link up with them." Outside, the sky was alive with light. The storm continued to drop human soldiers across the entire area. Each pod landed with precision, avoiding the colony buildings where humans were held. The Earth forces clearly knew exactly where their people were being kept. Tom helped an older man named Joe as they moved through the compound. All around them, the battle raged. Razor soldiers were falling back, overwhelmed by the constant rain of human troops. "Look!" Joe pointed upward, his voice filled with awe. Through a break in the clouds, they could see massive ships hovering in the upper atmosphere. They were unlike anything Tom had ever seen. Sleek, dark vessels that seemed to bend the light around them. "Earth has been busy," Marcus said, also looking up. "Those are warships. Big ones." As they watched, smaller craft detached from the larger vessels and began descending through the storm. These weren't drop pods but actual attack ships, moving with impossible speed and agility. "Find cover," Marcus shouted as one of the ships swooped low over the compound. But the ship wasn't targeting them. It fired a precise beam of blue energy that struck the main Razor defense tower, vaporizing it instantly. Other ships followed, systematically destroying the Razor defenses while carefully avoiding areas where humans might be. "They know exactly what they're doing," Anna said, appearing beside Tom. She had a group of colonists with her from the Eastern Barracks. "They must have analyzed the data I sent." The colonists continued moving toward the east gate, gathering more of their people as they went. What had started as 40 was now over 100, a ragged army armed with stolen weapons and burning determination. When they reached the gate, they found it already under attack by Earth forces. Soldiers in sleek gray armor were engaged with the remaining Razor guards. Their movements were almost too fast to follow, enhanced by technology the colonists had never seen before. One of the soldiers spotted the approaching colonists and signaled to the others. A path opened up in their formation, allowing the colonists to pass through. "Get behind us," the soldier called out, her voice slightly mechanical through her helmet. "We'll handle this." But Marcus stepped forward. "We can fight. These monsters have held us captive for 3 years. We want our share of the battle." The soldier studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Follow our lead then. We're pushing toward the central command building." The combined force of soldiers and colonists swept through the eastern section of the compound. The Razors put up fierce resistance, but they were outmatched by Earth's new technology. The human soldiers moved like lightning, their weapons cutting through Razor defenses as if they were paper. Tom found himself fighting alongside a soldier who couldn't have been more than 20 years old. The young man moved with confidence, his armor seeming to anticipate the Razor's attacks. "How did you find us?" Tom asked during a brief lull in the fighting. "Your message," the soldier replied. "It reached Earth about 5 months ago. We were already preparing for something like this. There had been rumors of colonies going silent. But your data gave us everything we needed. Their numbers, their technology, their weaknesses." A Razor soldier appeared from behind a building. Before Tom could even raise his weapon, the Earth soldier had fired, dropping the alien with a precise shot. "You're using their weather against them," Tom observed, looking up at the continuing storm. The soldier nodded. "The Razors can't track anything through heavy atmospheric disturbance. Their sensors get confused by electrical activity. So we created the biggest storm this planet has ever seen. You can control weather. One of many things Earth developed after we realized we weren't alone in the universe." The soldier gestured for Tom to follow as they moved toward the next position. The battle continued to rage across the compound. From his position, Tom could see that the human forces had the upper hand. The Razors were being pushed back to their central headquarters, a massive structure that dominated the center of the compound. Marcus found Tom during the advance. "The Earth commander wants us to gather all the colonists in the old assembly area. They're going to secure it as a safe zone." "I want to keep fighting," Tom insisted. "We all do," Marcus replied, putting a hand on his shoulder. "But we need to organize. Some of our people are injured, and the children need protection." Tom had almost forgotten about the children. There weren't many, The Razors had separated families when they took over, but about 20 kids had survived the occupation, kept in a separate area, and forced to sort minerals. Anna's already leading a team to get them, Marcus added, seeing the question in Tom's eyes. As they helped gather the colonists, Tom watched the Earth forces continue their assault on the Razor headquarters. The alien commander had barricaded himself inside with his elite guards, but it wouldn't last long. The human ships had surrounded the building, cutting off any escape. One of the Earth commanders approached the gathering colonists. He removed his helmet, revealing a weathered face with kind eyes. "I'm General Reed," he said. "On behalf of Earth Alliance, I want you to know that you're safe now. The Razors are beaten. Their ships in orbit have been destroyed or captured." A cheer went up from the colonists, 3 years of pain and fear releasing in a single moment of joy. "How?" asked an old woman near Tom. "How did Earth become so powerful? The Razors destroy our ships like they were nothing." General Reed's expression grew serious. "After we lost contact with the outer colonies, Earth united like never before. Every nation, every resource focused on one goal, developing the technology to find you and bring you home. What you're seeing today is the result of 3 years of single-minded determination." Tom looked around at the Earth forces still securing the compound. Their technology seemed almost magical compared to what he remembered from Earth. "We never stopped looking for you," the general continued, "and we never will stop looking for any human colony that goes silent. That's a promise Earth has made." As night fell on Aurea, the storm clouds finally began to clear, revealing the stars above and the massive Earth fleet in orbit. The storm that had brought humanity's vengeance was passing, but its work was done. The Razors had been defeated. The colony was free. The morning after the battle brought the first true sunrise the colonists had seen in years. The artificial storm had cleared completely, leaving the sky a brilliant blue. Throughout the night, more Earth ships had arrived, bringing medical teams, supplies, and reunions that many had thought impossible. Tom stood on a small hill overlooking what had once been the mining compound. Earth engineers were already dismantling the Razor structures, erasing the painful reminders of captivity. Medical tents had been set up in the old assembly area, where doctors treated the wounds and illnesses that the colonists had endured for so long. "It's hard to believe," Anna said, joining him on the hillside. She looked different today, standing straighter, her face relaxed for the first time in years. "Just yesterday we were slaves. Today we're free." Tom nodded, unable to find words for the emotions swirling inside him. Joy, relief, and a strange sense of loss. For 3 years, survival had been his only goal. Now what? A shuttle landed nearby, its engines barely making a sound. General Reed emerged, accompanied by several officers and a civilian woman whose clothing marked her as someone important. "That's the Earth Alliance president," Marcus said, approaching Tom and Anna. He had received medical treatment for his injuries, a clean bandage wrapped around his arm. "They say she led the effort to find us." The 3 of them watched as the president spoke with groups of colonists, her manner warm and concerned. Eventually, she made her way up the hill toward them. "These are the ones I told you about," General Reed said as they approached. "They led the resistance here. Without their signal, we might never have found Aurea." The president stepped forward, her eyes moving from face to face. "On behalf of all humanity, I thank you for your courage. Your message changed everything for us." "We didn't know if anyone would hear it," Anna admitted. "Not only did we hear it," the president replied, "it confirmed what we had feared, that the Razors were systematically attacking human colonies. Your data about their technology was invaluable." She gestured toward the fleet visible in the sky above. "Everything you see here was developed specifically to counter the Razor threat. The weather manipulation technology, the enhanced soldiers, the stealth ships, all created after we analyzed your message." Tom looked up at the massive vessels with new understanding. "You built all this in just 6 months." The president's expression grew serious. Earth has changed since you left, Tom. When the first colonies went silent 3 years ago, we didn't know what was happening. But as more disappeared, we realized we were under attack. Every nation, every resource was directed toward defense and finding our lost people. A group of soldiers approached, escorting a Razor commander in restraints. Its once proud bearing was gone, replaced by defeat. The alien looked small somehow, its fearsome appearance diminished by capture. "This one wishes to speak with you," one of the soldiers told the president. "It claims to be their fleet commander." The president nodded, and the soldiers brought the Razor forward. "You have defeated us here," the alien said in its clicking language, now translated by a small device one of the officers held. "But you have not seen the full might of our empire. There will be consequences for this attack." The president's face remained calm. "Your forces attacked peaceful colonies without provocation. You enslaved our people and killed thousands. The consequences are yours to bear, not ours." She stepped closer to the alien, unafraid. "Your main fleet has already been engaged by our forces near the system you call Nexus 7. The battle ended 2 hours ago. Your people surrendered." The Razor commander's scales changed color rapidly. A sign of shock, Tom had learned. "Impossible," it hissed. "The Nexus fleet had 50 warships. We had more," the president said simply. "And we had something your people have never understood. A determination to find our family, no matter the cost." As the soldiers led the stunned commander away, Tom felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. It was truly over, not just for Aurea, but for all the colonies. Throughout the day, more shuttles arrived, bringing supplies and taking the most injured colonists to the medical ships in orbit. Tom helped where he could, assisting the Earth teams as they set up temporary housing. In the afternoon, a young officer found him distributing food supplies. "Tom Baker?" she asked. Tom nodded, wondering what she wanted. "There's someone who'd like to speak with you." She handed him a communication device, a private channel from one of the ships in orbit. Curious, Tom accepted the device. "Hello." The screen flickered, and a face appeared, older with more gray in his beard, but unmistakable. "Dad," Tom whispered, his voice catching. "Tom, thank God." His father's eyes were wet with tears. "When we got word that Aurea had been found, I called in every favor I had to get assigned to the rescue fleet. You're here, in orbit. My ship arrives in 2 hours. I've been working with the Alliance Navy since the colonies started going silent. Half the engineers on these new vessels are former colonists or family members." Tom couldn't hold back his own tears now. He had assumed his family would have moved on, believing him dead after so many years of silence. "We never gave up, son," his father said, seeming to read his thoughts. "None of us did. That's what the Razors never understood about humans. We don't abandon our own." As evening fell, the colonists gathered in what had once been the central plaza of their colony. The Razor buildings had been removed, leaving an open space where Earth forces had set up lights and a simple stage. The president addressed them all, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Today marks not just your liberation, but a new chapter for humanity," she said. "The knowledge we gained in finding you has pushed Earth forward by decades. The unity we found in searching for you has healed old divisions. In trying to destroy us, the Razors have only made us stronger." She gestured to the sky, where the first stars were becoming visible alongside the Earth ships. "These stars were once places of fear for us, realms of unknown dangers. Now they are highways back to our lost families. What was taken from you, your freedom, your dignity, your years, can never be fully restored. But I promise you this, humanity will never again be caught unprepared. We will never again lose our people in the darkness." A cheer rose from the gathered colonists, echoing across the hills of Aurea. Later, as night fully descended, Tom found himself standing with Anna and Marcus at the same spot where they had planned their desperate message 6 months ago. "What will you do now?" Anna asked them both. Marcus looked up at the stars. They've offered me a position with the Alliance forces. They need people who know the Razors firsthand. And you? Tom asked Anna. She smiled. Earth's Science Division wants me to help them understand the Razor technology I'd worked with. Apparently, my little communication device was quite impressive. They both looked at Tom expectantly. I don't know yet, he admitted. Maybe help rebuild the colony. Or maybe explore what Earth has become. He looked up at the massive ships above them, symbols of how far humanity had advanced in 3 short years. Everything's changed. Not everything, Marcus said, putting his hand on Tom's shoulder. We're still who we always were, just a little stronger now. As they stood together under the stars, a bright light streaked across the sky. Not a weapon or a drop pod, but a simple shooting star. To Tom, it seemed like a final punctuation mark on their long ordeal. The storm had passed, but the strength it had revealed in humanity would remain, a force as powerful as any weapon, as enduring as the stars themselves.